everybody stop having any problems for 1 hour, and then
just one. And then somebody will come in and be like, oh no. Yeah, that's how it is at my house. So my husband broke his foot because I left my high heel on the stairs. Yeah. So like really it was my fault. It was like I couldn't even like, you know, on it off with anybody else.
No.
I'm the only person that wears high heels in the house, and I hardly ever wear them. It was just that we were around from like a celebration we did, and
but it wasn't intentional.
Yeah, it wasn't. It definitely wasn't, but it did not help that broken ankle.
No, I can't. That has got to be so painful, and you know, it's a part of the body that you need and you use, and when you don't have it at 100%, it affects everything.
And he was like, Megan, I'm too old for this. Like we have to do this before before middle age. We have to go to these. I'm too old for this. It's not going to heal that fast.
So next time consider that, but for the moment,
right. Like, darn it, I should have done that to my son then. No. No. Oh my gosh.
We have to laugh. We just have to find the humor in these really difficult moments.
For sure. Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm going to open up my app here just to make sure that we're actually in there.
Okay.
Oh, here we go.
Silence my notifications and everything else.
Caroline said, oh, why does everything have to happen all at once? I have a meeting at 8, 9, 10, and 12. I wanted to come to this today. She said that she's going to try to make it. Mm-hmm. Oh, Stacey Baden is going to come. That's awesome.
I love it.
I feel her on that. Like, why does everything happen all at once?
It does seem like that for sure. I think we all have those stories that it's like, this is what's happening all at once.
That's how I feel about like after school time to dinner. It's like,
yeah.
It's a hot mess. I can never get myself together. All right, I'm going to turn this banner off. Oh, we have a comment.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hi, Facebook user. If you want your name to show up, you have to click on the link above this video and just give your permission. Good morning. It's afternoon here, but I understand everybody's in different time zones.
Yeah.
Turn this banner off. Hide that. Yay. Okay. Got it. All right. So I'm going to get started. Welcome, everyone. My name is Meghan Ashburn, and I am the fearless leader of That Awesome Book Club. And I'm also, you can find me at Not an Autism Mom on all the socials and things like that. The book club, for those of you that don't know, I think we have over 1,000 new members in like the last couple months. So the book club is just a place that anybody can come. You don't have any assigned reading, and you can talk about what you're reading. You can ask questions about a book, get a recommendation. And then we interview amazing people like our guest today. Thank you for joining us, Ginger Healy.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
It's Stacy. Hi, Stacy. I love Stacy. I'm so happy you came, that you made it. Okay, so Ginger is the author of, I'm going to have to read it, 15-Minute Focus, Brief Counseling Techniques That Work. This one is on regulation and co-regulation, accessible neuroscience and connection strategies that bring calm into the classroom. It is a super accessible it's almost like a pocket guide.
Yeah.
And I love it. So welcome. Thank you for joining us again. If you haven't gotten this, I've already gifted this to my kids' teachers because it really is so accessible and people can kind of take a few minutes and read some, and then a few more minutes and read some if they need to. So yeah, it's really great. So thank you again for writing this and for joining us.
Oh, I love talking about this subject. I love talking about the book. I just love being here and being like amongst people who, in my mind, have the same mission, the same heart, we're all on the same page doing the same work in our homes, in our schools, in our offices for these kids and for ourselves. And so it's just great to be here among you. And you know what I mean by all of you.
Yes, absolutely. Like shifting the narrative. Stacy,
Yeah.
plug for you. I'm going to put this up here so that I don't have to hold it up, but it can still be shown. Very good. Okay, that's perfect. So Ginger, tell us about you. What's your background? All of the things about you.
Okay, all the things that are, legal. No, I'm kidding.
Right, exactly.
I live in Utah. I was born and raised in Utah, all different parts, So currently I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah. And I am a licensed clinical social worker and have been doing that for, oh my gosh, almost 30 years. And got into it because I just had a heart for children. Within social work, you can do a lot of different jobs, which I love and which I have done. But my focus really has always been child-centered. That's just where I feel my strengths are and my heart is. And so that's a little bit, I've done a lot of different things with child abuse investigations and crisis counseling, school social work. I worked with an international adoption agency for 15 years and traveled and went into orphanages to evaluate children and match them with families and bring them with home and do pre and post adoption therapy and counseling. Did that for 15 years. And so all of those experiences professionally helped really educate me and build a lot of what I talk about in the book and what I do in my life. And in addition to that, I have 4 children, and that really is my most important job. The reason that I get up in the morning and every breath I take surrounds them. And our oldest son was adopted when he was 5 years old. He was born in Romania, and I was traveling for a humanitarian trip and met him, and he was 2 at the time, and we fell in love with each other, and we started the process to adopt him. It took 3 years for that paperwork to process. So he came home when he was 5 years old. And in the meantime, during that 3 years, I got pregnant and had a baby. And so I got these 2 boys at the same time. And neither one of them spoke English. It was really challenging. I always tease because it was probably one of the hardest times of my life, most challenging physically, emotionally, cognitively. It was so hard. It was something I had prayed for my whole life, and I felt blessed and I was thrilled, and it was a miracle to have these 2
And at the same time, right.
And
it's hard.
It was hard. It was hard. And so I always talk about that too, because it's okay to have 2 truths. It can be hard, and it can also be full of joy and all the things too. So, and then we had our daughter, Eliana, and then our caboose, our last kiddo is Dash, and he is 12. So I've got 25, 22, 17, and 12. They're all spread out, and they're all amazing and crazy and, keep me on my toes. But 2 of my kids are autistic, and that is a journey that has really informed me and continues to inform me. I feel like the more I know, the less I know. You know what I mean? Like,
that is really, that sums it up, doesn't it?
I by no means am an expert. I am learning every day. I am making mistakes every day, and I'm trying every day. And so I say all that about my kids because they really inform the book too, and what I do every day. started working for the Attachment and Trauma Network in 2018. So that's my current job. And I am the program director, and the Attachment and Trauma Network has a program for schools where we go and help schools become trauma sensitive, trauma aware, trauma informed. That's a big part of the book.
I noticed that was a huge theme in the book, which I was appreciative of with, I mean, we really do need to be trauma informed, trauma responsive.
Yes, all the things. We need to be attachment focused in schools. I mean, how much time you got? I love talking about schools and about what these kids need, whether they've been impacted by trauma, have attachment difficulties, have disabilities, whatever it is, we can help them. And so that's a big part of my job with the Attachment and Trauma Network. And then we have a parent program, a caregiver program. And that's how the Attachment and Trauma Network started, was for caregivers, for parents. It was founded by moms who needed each other because they didn't have the resources and support and help they needed anywhere else. And so that's how we all found each other. That's how even before I started working, how I knew about the Attachment and Trauma Network was because when I came home with my son from Romania, I kind of thought that it wasn't going to be, I didn't know what I needed for him. I thought I knew enough that, all you need is love. And quickly found, no, you need more than that. You need help and support and resources and blah, blah, blah. So the Attachment and Trauma Network's been a big part of my life for a very long time. And so it's a joy to work for them and to work for them as a caregiver and as having worked in the schools so that I can manage those programs that we have. So anyway, that informs the book and everything I do as well, professionally and personally. And so I don't even remember what your question was. That's a little bit about me.
I don't even know what my question was at this point, but
it doesn't matter, right?
Okay, so we're talking about this book.
Yeah.
And tell me, first of all, like why you wrote it and who you wrote it for. And what sparked this book here with regulation and co-regulation for the classroom. What made that happen?
Yeah. Well, big shout out to the National Center for Youth Issues, who is the publisher. They had this idea to create a series of books that were accessible. So that size that you pointed out, that they have a formula that is accessible, especially for educators who already have a lot on their plates. So they have many books within the 15-minute focus series that talk about really important topics, but that you can grab and pull and read. And initially, when I approached them and they approached me of what to write about, I had some ideas in my head that I thought were really good. And I wanted to write a children's book, and I had kind of written some things that I wanted them to look at. And they said, that's great. That's great ideas. But we also think that right now, because I was at the time speaking all around the nation about regulation and co-regulation within homes, therapeutic parenting, within schools, trauma sensitive schools. And so I was just speaking all the time, everywhere, and about regulation and co-regulation. And they said, you can write a book about that. You've got it. It's all right here.
And they had a need for that, obviously.
And they had a need for that. And so it was a beautiful marriage. And I was mostly at the time focusing on therapeutic parenting because I felt that was more my expertise. But they said teachers need this. And I knew that, and I agreed with that. So that's how the focus kind of shifted into classrooms. But I'll tell you what, that book is for everybody. It is for the classroom, yes, but it is for the home. It is for any child serving professional, because really, it's the same foundational neuroscience, and it's the same child.
And it's caregiving. That's what it is. Any kind of caretaking when you are an adult that is taking care of a child, because no matter in what capacity you serve, when we're talking about early childhood, that is our job.
That's right.
Just to take care. Yeah.
That's right. And it all comes down, if you want to boil all of this down to like even one word, it's relationship. So whether it's the relationship between the child and the parent, or the student and the teacher, or whatever, it's that whoever the two are, it's the relationship between them that heals childhood trauma, that heals attachment wounds, that helps a child become more successful, that heals the nervous system. It only takes one supportive, attuned, present adult to get that child on the path to building resilience. We don't build resilience on our own. We're not born with the capacity to just pull ourselves up from our bootstraps. We are born dependent, we are born vulnerable, and that need never really changes. We become more self-sufficient, we become more independent, but we always need others. We die in isolation. And so that need for relationship, for connection, for healing with another through co-regulation never ends. And
I would add, I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt.
No, I would
add that this book will be preventing more trauma, because when adults have the skills to regulate and co-regulate, you're preventing trauma that maybe you might have inflicted on a child inadvertently, of course, but because you didn't have the skills to do this. And Stacy said, I agree, parents and educators would both benefit on the book. Yeah, for sure.
Anyone in a child's life, because we're talking about healing this child. And the prevention piece that you're talking about is so important, because we're in systems right now that re-traumatize children, especially in schools and oftentimes in our homes. I was one of those moms who, because of the way I was raised, because of our culture, because of what I didn't know, actually harmed my children. And I, with no intention of doing that, but there was 2 incidences that come to mind where I misinterpreted my children's behavior as willful, as disobedient, as manipulative, as disrespectful. I looked at what they were doing and it triggered me, and I was angry and I wanted it to stop. And so I punished it. Same story in probably every household in the world, right? And every school in the world.
It's true.
But when I learned that that behavior had a need behind it, had a lagging skill or an unmet need, or was a sign of something, and that my kid couldn't do what I was asking, it wasn't that they didn't want to and they were being willfully disobedient. They truly could not do, because my son was in the freeze response or misinterpreted my expectations. And so when I punished my son for being frozen, for not answering my question and for not doing what I asked him to do for the millionth time, then I was re-traumatizing him, right? So I sit with that and I feel that. And I've had many moments with my son where I've said, I'm sorry, and I'm going to do better. And thank you for giving me second chances.
I feel this so much. I really do. When I look back at just like,
I know.
I was a teacher as well. Like before I had the twins who are 10 now, I was a teacher, and I look back and think, my God, like the things that I didn't know. Of course, I always loved the kids, that is what it is. But things that I would have done differently and responded to differently, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Stacy has a question.
Oh.
What is your advice for educators who come with their own trauma and therefore don't have the ability to provide co-regulation support? Sadly, I'm short on time because I have a client, so I'm commenting a lot. We love you commenting, Stacey,
Yeah,
but
I love it.
that's a great question. I mean,
It's such a good
we
question.
all have
And
our own triggers, don't we?
I was going to say, most of us come to this work as a parent or an educator with our own baggage, with carrying an invisible backpack. That's normal. That's human. There's no shame in that. There's no shame in being human, first of all. So there's that. And the whole regulation cycle that happens every day, where a student or a child is dysregulated and then the adult intervenes, it's the step one. The first thing is that the adult needs to be regulated first before they can regulate a child. That is in an ideal world, and that is great, and that is wonderful. And I preach that for good reason, because a dysregulated child can dysregulate an adult, right? We can catch, it's contagious.
Yeah.
We can catch dysregulation. We can make it worse. We can re-traumatize it, all these things. So if we are not ourselves yet, I use the word calm a lot, but I'm not necessarily meaning calm. When I say calm, I'm talking about regulated, balanced, able to help another. So that's that. Step one is that we have to be that way first. But before I even get there, what I want to say, because Stacey brought it up so beautifully, is that sometimes we're not there. A lot of times we're not there. And just us going, okay, breathe, isn't a quick fix because of that invisible backpack, because of our baggage. So acknowledging it, becoming aware of it, knowing that it's okay and normal that we have stuff is really important. And really, if you really truly want to help a child and yourself, you have to deal with your stuff. It's not easy. It's not quick. It doesn't happen overnight. It's painful. Oh my gosh, it's so painful. It's so not fun.
It's a lot of work. Yeah,
it's a lot of work.
I would even argue, not argue, but add to really to track patterns. That's a thing for me. Like we were discussing before we started about just how dysregulated I get. But at the time, right when the bus comes to like dinner time, that 4 to 6 o'clock when everybody's coming at me like, mom, Megan, blah, 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 like, and it's super dysregulating for me. And there is no way that I can co-regulate with a child at that point because I am just so bothered. And so just tracking those patterns will help you kind of, at least try at some point to make. For me, it was just finding one thing that I could do to make that time of day easier, just one thing, so that I didn't have to do. For instance, I'd started meal prepping for the week. That way I didn't have to figure out what's for dinner, wash the dishes to cook, and all of this stuff while I'm doing kids, at 100 miles an hour. So even tracking patterns is something.
I love that. I love that. And I really, when I sat with like, why am I always getting bugged? Like you said, a certain time of day or a certain behavior. Like once I started figuring out my triggers, then I, could just take a pause and go, okay, that's why I'm upset right now. It has really nothing to do with the kid. It's not that kid's fault. For us even to say they're pushing my buttons, like not intentionally, and some, if they are, because I've gotten pushback on that, maybe if they are, it's this desperate need for control or connection. Like we call it attention seeking, but what it really is connection seeking. So that's a whole nother thing too. But identifying my triggers and knowing I'm going to be put in a situation where I'm going to be pushed, like for you, maybe from 4 to 6 p.m. How do we modify that environment? How do we accommodate that environment? How do we lessen the triggers? And just knowing that is a big one, so the awareness is everything. And just being able to have that moment to pause and go, okay, I need a minute. I've got to get things kind of settled for me so that I can regulate with my kid. Because when my kids come home from school, that often is the time that they need me most. And they need me in my, upstairs brain. They need me able to handle the load that they're going to put on me so that I can bear it with them and lighten their burden. Maybe not fix it, maybe not take it away, but help them manage it. I have to be in a certain state to be able to do that.
That's a great kind of visual. Like they have a load and we need to help them carry that. They're carrying a load. That's a great way to put it. So, you mentioned the regulation cycle, and that's in chapter 2 of this book. You talk about the regulation cycle, and I'm just going to show a little picture here. It's a visual. Can you kind of just summarize that for us and why it's even important?
Yeah. Well, it is important to know. I mean, I call it a cycle. I don't know if anybody else does, but I call it a cycle because I want you to know it's okay, that it's going to happen again. This is not about us stopping something, fixing it, curing it so that it never happens again. Dysregulation is human, and it will happen every day, multiple times a day, where we will get uncomfortable, where we will get triggered. That's like, just a little bit, or where somebody in the car in front of us will slam on their brakes. For whatever it is, it's going to happen. We're going to get hungry. We're going to get tired. I mean, there's just a million things that push us and trigger us. And so that is normal. So we have to teach that to kids, that you're going to have big emotions. You're going to have hard days. You're going to have hard times. And that's okay. That's not the problem. We're not trying to stop all the bad things in your life from happening, because it's impossible and it would defeat the purpose of life. We are humans. We are not robots. We are meant to have feelings, not just the good feelings. We wouldn't appreciate the good feelings if we didn't have times of grief, times of sadness, times of fear, times of anger. That is human to have those feelings. We have to normalize the feelings so that when it happens, instead of them being scared of the feelings and wanting to stop it and wanting to avoid it, because as humans, we don't like feeling uncomfortable and bad and scared. I get that. But if we're scared of it and we want to hurry and stop it, then what happens is we can do it in bad ways. Like we often want to numb the pain. And if we're numbing it with food or drugs or other things that feel really good for a minute, I get it, but that's not the goal. That's not what we want to teach children. We want to teach children healthy ways, long-term ways to manage the stress. The stress is not the problem. We'll always have stress in life. It's human to have stress, and not all stress is bad. But so you're going to have those moments. You're going to have
I feel like so often in schools, especially, like kids not allowed to have those feelings, right? Like it's not even that they're even given the opportunity to deal with it in an unhealthy way. It's almost like there's like, let's just plug the hole.
Oh my gosh.
It, like you're like, no, we're not doing this. Yeah. You're not even allowed to. I think a whole lot of kids, that's where they're coming from. Like,
yes, that's such, I love that you brought that up, because how many times have we said, stop crying? Pull yourself together.
We're not doing that right now.
We're not doing that right now.
I've said that.
I have said all the things. So I get it. We don't want it. And so we want it to stop. But we can get the behavior to stop or to change, or we can even prevent it through this regulation cycle, because we're actually getting to the underneath of it, rather than using fear tactics, or I'll give you something to cry about if you don't stop crying right now, or shame-based tactics like, what's wrong with you? It wasn't even that big of a deal. Why are you crying right now? those are all things that we do that are shame-based and fear-based and make things worse and don't solve anything, right?
Yeah.
So getting back to this cycle, it's just normalizing that, oh, okay, we're here in this moment, we're having a feeling. Now, what's the next step? Actually, the first step is what I had told you before, and that's that whoever's going to intervene, because we should never expect a child to solve this by themselves. They need help. So step one is the adult. Actually, I've seen kids co-regulate with each other. So the regulated person, individual, then co-regulates with the child. But that person cannot co-regulate with the child unless they are regulated first. But that doesn't mean that in that moment you become dysregulated. I want to give permission for that, because oftentimes, like, my logical brain is like, okay, my kid is really upset and I need to comfort them. But after it goes on a long time, or if I'm hungry or tired or whatever, I start, or they kick me or bite me or spit on me or whatever, it's really hard for me to go, oh, it's okay. Like, sometimes within this regulation cycle, as I'm co-regulating, I become dysregulated for whatever reason. I want you to know that's normal and human too. But we have to recognize that, because if we then get sucked into the dysregulation, that's when it can go totally awry again. So, okay, so oftentimes I'll say, you know what, I need a minute, or I'm going to go take a breath. I'm going to go to the bathroom. I'm going to get a drink. I'll be right back. If that child is safe, I'm not going to leave, and, I'm going to determine my response. But I think it's okay to model to the kid, I need a minute. I'm having a hard time. I'm trying, but I'm about to make a mistake or say something I'm going to regret. So I'm going to pause. I'll be back.
I often use the tag you're it
one.
Yeah. Like when I was teaching, we had a purple pen. And if I sent a child with a purple pen to my partner that's across the way, across the school, can you go give this to Miss So-and-so? Can you take that? She forgot it. Can you go return it? And then she would know, because, I know that I can't do it at the moment. Yeah, so I know maybe she can, and she can give them the loves and yeah.
What you're saying is so important, because we should never be able to 100% do this alone all the time. And in a school setting, asking for help, having a buddy to tag team with is everything. One of my teacher friends, she will have the child carry a box of books. The class down the hall really needs this box of books. And that teacher knew exactly what was happening and would say, thank you. Can you send this box back? Because the walking, the movement, the
heavy pressure, yeah.
There's so much that is like layered in with that. And it gave the teacher a moment of respite. It gave the kid a moment of respite. Like, there's a lot of different ways to do this part of step one. And step one is the most, I can talk for hours just on step one. But that's the whole piece is where we're at in our nervous system, and reflecting it to the kid and modeling it. And then we can co-regulate. And that's that second step of that regulation cycle, is that co-regulation piece. And it looks different, depending on the situation. I'm wanting to read what Stacy says here.
Stacy says being proactive is so much easier than being reactive. OMG, yeah. I have to have you as a guest on my podcast. I'm so excited hearing everything you say. Yes, you have to join Stacy's podcast.
Oh, I love it.
It's amazing.
Well, I love all the good work that's happening out there. We're all just really, like I said, wanting the same thing here, and that's the healing of all of our nervous systems, right? But, and when we co-regulate with kids, getting back to that cycle, it is good to model and to share and to teach these regulation tools and everything. That third step is actively teaching regulation. But I don't really feel like that's where I want to spend the time talking or teaching. And here's why. It takes a lifetime to build self-regulation skills. And I think it is shaming to a child if we just expect them to, on their own, stop crying, stop having the emotion. And we're not always going to be there for the child. So teaching them what helps is critical and important, but it really does come back to the relationship and the co-regulation piece. And so we can teach, those regulation skills, but I never want to skip over that and rush to talking about how to teach a child to regulate. I never want to, there should never be like sending away or isolating or secluding, go calm down. It's never, ever, ever about that. Ever.
For sure.
Even when they possibly can, unless they're asking, because my kids will sometimes say, I need space. I love it. I love that you know that and you're asking for it. And so, yep, I'm going to give it to you. That to me is very different. That is self-regulation, but I'm not enforcing it. I'm not pushing it. I'm not rupturing the relationship. I'm strengthening the relationship through giving them what they need. And if they need space, if they want that physical separation, that's very different than expecting them on their own to regulate.
I feel like I every time I see that as an IEP goal, and for IEP, for those of y'all that are not in America, it's like the special education. It's called an individualized educational plan. So I forget what it's called in other countries, but there's goals in there. And every time I see a goal that talks about we'll use their strategies when dysregulated, like for a 5-year-old, right? Like we'll use the strategies we taught them to regulate themselves. And and it makes me, on the one hand, it makes me happy that they're thinking about, right?
Yeah, the regulation is in the IEP.
Right. That dysregulation is in the IEP. It's on their mind. That makes me happy, right? But the way we're approaching it is so, it's so kind of like a math problem that, or like choose from these things. And then like, we're going to give you a choice board. When you're regulated, we're going to put this choice board in your face and say, do you want to do your breathing or do you want to this is just the implementation of it needs work, right? And I feel like this type of book kind of gives teachers the tools to actually kind of put that type of co-regulation in place instead of teaching a strategy kind of thing while kids are dysregulated. And that is a good segue to top-down strategies and bottom-up strategies. I remember reading this in Mona's book, Beyond Behaviors, reading about it. Kind of got it, kind of didn't. I'm just learning. This is not my forte of stuff. I mean, it's just not, this is not where I excel at or anything. So could you tell us a little bit about like top down, bottom up strategies and when to use them and when they develop, that kind of thing?
Yes. And I want to say, none of us were ever taught any of this. Even those of us who are in the field and who have education classes in this, whether, it be teachers or social worker, anyone working with child development, we were not taught this, so.
And they're still not being taught this. I mean, let's just be clear, in college, teacher prep college right now, most of them are not being taught this.
Yeah. So it's important that we're talking about it. We're educating now, ourselves and hopefully the public. So top down, bottom up, it's all about brain state. The brain is state dependent. And so it really helps to know very basic, easy neuroscience in that within your brain, The top part of the brain, the cortex, prefrontal cortex, is where you have executive functioning skills, and you can learn, and you can multitask and plan and reason and reflect. That's all the stuff that you need in school to succeed. You have, in order to even take a test, you've got to be, and do well on it, you've got to be in that top part of your brain. Now, if you are dysregulated, if you are worried, if you are scared, you don't have access to that top part of your brain. So things that we do in school, like taking a test, for example, is a top-down approach. But most kids, most students, most of us are usually not in that top part of the brain. So I like to just show the brain hand model when I'm talking about it. So if your hand is a brain, this is the brainstem, the cerebellum, that bottom part of the brain, and that's in charge of survival things like our heart rate, our digestion, our temperature regulation. We don't even think about those things. They happen, and we are alive because of the functions that happen in the downstairs part of the brain. And then in the middle part of the brain is like the limbic system with the amygdala and hippocampus. And all you need to know about that is like emotions, alarm, like we're detecting threat and safety and danger, and we're making sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's what that part of the brain is in charge of. And then this is that top part of the brain. So when we're regulated, when we're creative, when we're flexible, when we're able to think and reason and reflect, this is what our brain looks like. But if at all we are worried, we're scared, if we haven't eaten breakfast, if mom and dad had a fight before school, if the car in front of us slammed on their brakes, then we're like sensing danger. We're detecting threat, whether it's real threat, actual threat, or perceived. Like some of us, just hearing a certain sound makes us worried.
That's so important. I think that was my favorite part of Mona's book when she said, it doesn't matter if we think the child is safe. Like that doesn't matter. If the child doesn't feel safe, it doesn't really matter what you think the child should feel, because that's
right.
Like you're fine.
Yeah. A child coming into the classroom and me saying you're safe because I child-proofed it does not mean that that child feels safe, because maybe there's a certain smell, maybe there's a certain sound. It's typically what is related to our senses that trigger that hypervigilance and threat detection. So if we are detecting threat, or if there's a pop quiz or anything that makes us get out of that regulation state, then we flip our lid, and that means that we don't have access to the top part of the brain, the prefrontal.
So is it kind of like the Maslow pyramid, that hierarchy of needs? Like you have to have the safety and the food and the shelter first.
Basic needs.
Then we can move up to there. Okay.
Yeah, and this helps me know. And I teach this to kids so that they can let me know. I can, from across the room, if a kid's going like this or this, I can know trouble, we got to intervene. Or they can say green, yellow, red. And then we know. Or they don't need to say anything, because oftentimes when you're dysregulated, you don't have access to your processing hearing. So I can tell. It's not on the kid to tell me how they're feeling, but it does give common
like a language, kind of. Yeah, that's a strategy. Yeah.
And it gives them an opportunity to know that this is not their fault. Everybody flips their lid, and I am going to help you get the lid back down. So this is where the top-down strategies and the bottom-up come in. Is top-down, I can only do top-down strategies and have them work if the kid's lid is down. because then that means they have access to the part of their brain that can reason and reflect. I love top-down strategies. It's so fun to sit with a kid and say, tell me how you feel and what would work, and let's plan ahead, and what can we do so that it doesn't
What would you rather? Right. Yeah.
Those are great strategies, but most of the time they don't work until. So if you're trying to figure out top down versus bottom up, just always start bottom up, because everybody can do bottom up, and we need to do bottom up. And it means that we're going to start with sensations, emotions, feelings. It's going to be, have they had something to eat? Do they need a drink? Are they too hot or too cold? Do they need pressure or not? What do they physically need first? And emotionally, like, what are their basic needs that need to be met first so that they feel safe?
And I mean, there's also a possibility that you can't meet that need. So like, they might not have had any sleep the night before, right? So it's not like you can meet that need, but even if you can't do that, you need to be aware of that. Like, let's be aware of that and reduce the demands, reduce
That's
the
what I was just going to say. You can meet that need by shifting your expectations. If you know that they can't do that homework or problem or chore or whatever because they have not slept, then quit trying to force them to do it. It's not making anything better, and let it go until they feel safe enough. Once they feel safe, the lid goes back down, and then maybe they can push through and do the chore even though they're a little tired, or maybe they can have a nap, or maybe they can, I don't know, because we're talking, if it was
depends on what age the child is, where you are. Yeah, obviously.
On so many things, but often if we can't meet that immediate certain need, we can meet the need through providing safety, emotional and physical safety, and relationship, and shifting our expectations. And I don't mean permanently. I'm not talking about letting everybody get off and being permissive and breaking all the rules. I'm talking about, because there is safety in predictability and routine and structure and boundaries. I'm talking about shifting expectations and providing safety until they can meet that expectation.
And that's why you say it's a cycle. It's not something that's just regulate yourself, regulate them, or co-regulate, and then you're done. No, it's a cycle. We're doing it all day. I have a comment. I'm reading I've heard of this, Conscious Discipline, which has many of the same topics. I can't believe how unaware I was of how many of us have never learned to regulate. It was just stop doing X, Y, Z. Yes, just stop that. Just stop it.
Stop it. Yeah.
It is so true. I'm going to do this up again if people are just tuning in. We're talking about this book. It's a really great pocket-sized book. Great for teachers, great for parents, any kind of caregivers, personal care attendants, anyone who is taking care of a young child, anyone, for sure.
Yeah, and not only, like, it can heal you. And when I say you, I'm talking about you as any adult, because you're not going to be any good for the kid until you're okay. And so you can start here with yourself too. There's just so much there that I am continuing to learn that is helping me, be better and regulate my nervous system.
Gosh knows I need it.
Me too.
And I will say, the reason I love this book so much is because it is so small. Right. Every time I meet a new teacher, I give books to teachers every grade I'm in, a new set of teachers, or every grade my kids are in, a new set of teachers, a new team. And so I always have to ask them, like, are you a reader? Obviously they read, right? Because they have continuing education credits, but not everybody reads for fun, right?
Yeah,
I'm not
sure.
let me go to the beach and look at a book for 3 hours. I'm not that person. So like Beyond Behavior's Mona de la Hook, that's my favorite book ever, right? It's my favorite book. But I know that if I give that to a teacher who is busy with family and, all of the things that comes with teaching and doesn't necessarily love to read, that's not the book to give her, right?
Mhm.
This is such a better option when we're talking about like actually having somebody use it.
Yeah.
We want them to use it. And tell me again, there's a companion guide coming out to this. Can you tell me about that?
Yes, this is breaking news, Megan. Like you're the very first to hear this,
Oh,
by
the
the way.
breaking news ticker. Oh my
I
God.
know. Yes, I have been working so hard on this companion guide that is coming out. I don't have a release date yet. I'm thinking probably February 2020. What for? What year are we?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it is a companion guide. So it's going to even dive deeper into these concepts with strategies so that you can put them right into it. So it has worksheets that you can print off so that in the classroom you can do it as a class. It has crossover strategies for the home. It has strategies for teacher self-care and community care. It just has strategies that you can implement so that you can flip to it and just try something. So that is coming out very soon.
That is awesome. I can't wait to see it. I
Yeah.
really can't. That's awesome. I know that somebody else had asked that as well. So yes, I can't wait for that one to come out. And then maybe you can do a bundle or something.
That's exactly what it'll be. Yep.
That would be awesome. So another thing I can give to my teachers. Books, giving books are my love language. One of my love languages.
I love it. In the new book that's coming out, in my neurodivergent chapter, there's this 5 languages of neurodivergence. And when I discovered it, it like changed my relationship, strengthened my relationship with my son. And so it just gave us this like communication and understanding of each other that we had not realized we had been miscommunicating with on. And there was like this frustration between us. And finally, we had like words. And so I love that you just said love language, because that is such a big thing in relationship, is to learn to speak each other's love language. And so I get it. I love that you know yours and you use it, and it makes you happy.
Yeah. Okay. So before we end, because I do want to respect your time, I always ask my guests one final question. And this is a book club centered around neurodivergence, autism, and learning about that. But you can add ADHD or, any kind of neurodivergence. But if you could give one piece of advice to the parents or teachers or caregivers of a newly identified autistic kid or neurodivergent kid, what would it be?
Mm.
Just one.
I know, just one. That's hard. But okay, if I had to choose one, then I know what I would choose. And that is, okay, if you are a parent or a caregiver and your instinct is always to care for your child first, to put their needs first. It's noble. I get it. But I want to encourage you to take care of you, not even necessarily first, but make sure you are also caring for your child and caring for yourself, because it will help your child more if you have had enough sleep, if you have eaten well, if you have done what you need to do to feel better. And I don't necessarily love the word self-care. I like the term and concept community care, that it shouldn't all be on your own shoulders. Who can also care for you? you're care for yourself, care for others, and then within these relationships, they will care for you back. We have to care for each other. It's going back to that concept I talked about lightening each other's burden, lifting each other's load, making things more bearable and manageable. We're not fixing, we're not curing, we're not wiping it out. We're sustaining each other, and you will be able to help your child and sustain your child longer, better, find more resources if you are also supported. So find your girlfriend, find who has your back, and surround yourself by people who have your back so that you can have some respite, whatever that looks like, and then you will be better able to care for your child and meet their needs.
I love that. It's the whole secure your oxygen mask before you secure someone else's. Because if you run out of oxygen, you're not securing anybody's. If you pass out, then there will be no care that is taken of anyone. So yeah, I do. I love that. And everyone gives a very different answer. So it's kind of cool.
I know it's hard, and I'm coming to you saying I'm not necessarily doing a great job of that. It's hard, but my kids will be the first to tell you that they know a difference in me when I have modeled that for them, and really when my cup is full, and it's just going to look different for everybody. And there's always going to be things that drain it. So it's just keep adding, keep pouring into yourself and to others.
And I love the fact that you reframed it from self-care, because we're not necessarily talking about a spa day.
No,
that's not it. And it can look different than what you thought it should look like.
Yeah.
Because even like, for example, like working out, right? I know I feel good when I work out. I'm not in the place right now where I can be devoting an hour or two every day to work out. So now I enjoy riding the scooter with my kids, right? So like, I just have to kind of work it in, but also something that's fun, and everybody, it's what I can do right now.
That's exactly it. And giving yourself that grace, modeling, like, this is not about perfection. This is like, what can I do right now? And it does change, and it can be micro moments. For me, I have a girlfriend that lives in Virginia. I live in Utah. So we Marco Polo, and she can just say to me, "You're doing great. Keep going. I love you. You're not alone." And that 30 seconds of hearing her voice, and I truly know she loves me. She's got my back. I know I'm not alone. Sometimes that's all I need. Sometimes I need something different or something more, but that's one little thing that she's taking care of me, in a very easy way.
I love that. Well, okay, so thank you for joining us, Ginger Healy. And I'm going to bring it back to the book one more time. If you haven't gotten it, grab it. I know it's on ebook as well, like Kindle or whatever you get your ebooks on. 15-minute focus, brief counseling techniques that work. That's kind of like the brand, I guess.
Correct.
Okay. And so this one is on regulation and co-regulation, accessible neuroscience and connection strategies that bring calm into the classroom. And it is available now. And then you can buy it again in February when the companion book comes out, and gift it to a teacher, or get it from or request it at your library. If you can't buy one, request it at the library. I know that lots of libraries will just get what people order. So definitely do that. Make it accessible for everyone. But yes, thank you for joining us. This was excellent.
I'm so glad. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, I'm going to end the stream, and we'll be back in my studio, but don't go anywhere. Thanks, everyone, for joining and commenting. I saw you, Kieran. We're up here, so I'm so happy for that. Okay, bye.